So good morning friends, welcome back to the third chapter of our Android development course. So this course is powered by www.host-tune-perform.com. So I hope that you remember the meaning of activity and fragment from my previous chapter. So in this chapter we will be discussing about the life cycle of an activity. Then we will go ahead and discuss about how we can debug the Android code. And the third thing which we will do today is user permission. So you must have, like, if you're using an Android phone, you must have seen that the application asks for call log permission or SMS permission or internet permission. So when you provide them these permissions, the app can access up the data inside your phone. So we will be talking about how to set up these permissions. Then there is something called as intents and intent filter. So this is very important, and this is something which creates up the base for building up your apps, and your movement within your application is always done via intents. So we'll talk about it in detail. And the last part today is like implementing the frame animation. So I started up my course with like frame animation and object animation. So in that frame animation, like, we were having these circles moving right and this one moving left. This part was moving up and down, and here we had a lot of smoke. So this is a frame animation of a factory, and like this has been built this way because AutoFunnel is an auto chat application. So what exactly is it does is like it connects with your Gmail using OAuth 2 authentication, and then like it grabs all the emails which you receive from Just Dial or IndiaMart. And what it does is like it like takes up the phone number of your lead and sends him or her a text message. And after like sending up the message, if the person reverts, then also like this application like reverts back automatically. So this is an auto chat application. Like a person do not want like have to intervene in between, like this handles everything. So that's why it is saying this, like, here this thing will be eaten up, and here there will be a smoke generated up, and this will move up and down, and this will show up like a factory, which like actually represents the like automation which has been done by AutoFunnel. So this was all about like today's agenda. Let us talk about this and start up with life cycle of an activity. So I will just reiterate myself. What is an activity? Like, we have frames in Java, and like you can say that the activity is the first container which takes up all the space. So this all of the space which is visible on your mobile phone will be taken up by the activity. So let me go and let us learn the life cycle of an activity. So whenever you say that an activity is launched, what is happening? I just click over here and install the app on my device, and the activity is saying install, and it is launching of the activity, and it gets launched. So there are a lot of states in between. At like when it comes to finally into a running state, so this is the running state. If I click on this button, it comes back to the pause state. So we have already discussed about it. And if we come back over here, it again comes to the running state. So we will see all of these things in logs in a second. Let us see it in a diagram first. This diagram has been given up by Android themselves. They say that when an activity is launched, at first onCreate method is called. So here you can see that in onCreate method we are like setting up the layout. Inside onCreate method we are setting up saying set content view. This is why like onCreate method is required. So at first we create it, and then it comes into a start state, and then it comes into a on resume state, and at last it comes into a activity running state. So you will not realize all of these things happening, and you do not need to see all of these functions. So if you see over here in this app, you see only one function which is overridden, which is on create. You do not have on start or on resume, but you can have them. Then the activity keeps on running, and then you can pause it, stop it, destroy it. So pausing is, now you have paused it, the activity has been paused, you have again come back to your local screen. You again want to resume it, you resume it. and at the end like the activities goes down, and in the similar way from on pause you can again come back to on resume and like get it running. We have already seen this. And if you have like destroyed it, you can open it again from the very start. You need to open up the app. So when I say that I'm opening up the app which is AutoFunnel, so I will just type in AutoFunnel and click over here. So it has launched the app again, activity launched again, and on create will be again be called. So in the similar way, even after on stop, the on create is called again. So if you're not able to understand all of these things, that is okay, because we will be seeing all of them in a while live on our logs. How? You just need to go to your Android Studio, right click over here and click on generate. After generate, you have to say override methods. And in override methods, just select on start, on stop, on destroy, and you have to select on. Let us select all these three first and say okay. So you see we have all these three methods which are on start, on stop, on destroy. So we have on start, on stop, on destroy. We do not have on pause, on resume. So I will just right click again here and say generate and say override methods, and we do not have on pause, pause, on pause, and on resume. So you will find all these methods out here. On pause and on resume is also there now. So on pause, on resume, on stop. Do we have on stop? So in the similar way, like you can get all the other methods. Let us see them first. So how I can see them? So to see it, let us understand a few concepts about the next topic which we are going to discuss, and that is, if I open up my contents, that is debugging Android code and setting up logs. So I'm just setting up the logs. How do we set up logs? I will say log dot I, and I will set up an initial string which is, say I am in on create method, and then finally say I am in on create. So here let us say this is a auto funnel class. Let us list the class name. So on the auto funnel class we are on create method, on create method, right? And it is showing us red. So to just to include it, I will just press alt enter, and it asks me to import the class. I will import the class and the class will be added over here. So the logs can be of multiple types. We will like discuss it in some while like when we will discuss the debugging part. Let us hold for now on this, and let us copy paste this particular thing everywhere and say on pause. So I am in on pause. Then here I am in on resume, right? Then here I am in on start, and here I am in on stop, and at last I am in on destroy. Correct? So let me save it, and let me like tell you where we see the logs. So we see the logs over here in logcat. So here you can just type in auto funnel and you will be able to see the logs only for the auto funnel app. So if you will not type in, you will see the logs of everything. So better if you just copy your package and type it in over here. So that's why like this way you will see all the logs only of your package. So let me reinstall, because we have made the change in the code, and to reflect it in the app I am just reinstalling it over here. So as I reinstall it said like on, I am launching up, and it launched up the application. So application is in running state as of now. So let us see the logs. So I also want to make sure that I get this part also, so that I can show you of the logs. So you see the logs, it says I am in onCreate. At first it was in onCreate method, and then it went to onStart method, and then it went to onResume method. This is what it is said in this. It is on onCreate, onStart, onResume, and then the activity starts running. But if I go ahead and say do something like this, so it says on pause and on stop, on pause and on stop. If I get this application back, it again says on start and on resume, but on create is never called. You see, on start and on resume. So from on stop, it moved back to start or resume, but it never went to on create because this particular layout has already been created and it knows about it. But now if I have to destroy this particular application, so to destroy it, I will just not like click over here. If I click on this button, it will go to on pause and on stop. Let me come back on resume. I have to click here. This button will go to the destroy part. So let me clear all this and show you of the same. So if I press this, it means that just move back and destroy everything of this application. So it has destroyed everything. So if you see over here that how Android works is, if I click on this app again, it just shows me the stack of the applications which can be opened. So I can open it again, but now if I open it, now it will also like call on create, because on destroy was called previously. So that's why it has called again on create. But you need to make, like, you need to understand this, like if I do something like this and clear the app, so the app has already like went into an on stop position. So even if I do something like this, then it resumes. But if I like clear it, let me clear the logs. If I clear all, then it will not call on destroy. So this is not going to call the on destroy like uh, this function. So what is the use of this function? The use of this function. So there is another function which I want to discuss is on back button press. How I can reach up that is, again I will go to settings and override methods, back. I will just say back button pressed, back pressed, on back pressed. So this is the method which I was talking about. Let me just add in a log over here and say I am in on back pressed. So now let me again rerun it. Will get installed, then it will call on create, then on start, then on resume, and the application is on. Now if I press this button, at first it is going to call on back button pressed. So this function is to signify like, or to make track if the user has pressed up the back button. So you can do anything when the user presses up the back button. Yeah, you can take him to some other activity or like do anything as you like. You will have to write up the code over here. In the similar fashion, if you want to do something when the person destroys an app, so maybe like you want to like stop a service. If a person comes out of the app, you want to stop a service, so like you can stop a service in on destroy. Then in the similar fashion, in on create, on resume, on pause can be like used as and when they are required. But obviously learning about the life cycle of an activity and the life cycle of a fragment is very important. So we have covered up the part of like the life cycle of an activity. So you can go ahead and see the link which says understand the life cycle of an activity. Again, this will make you understand all these things which I have just told you. And you can see that this particular page has same image. This is the same image which I have fetched out from here, and we were talking about this image itself. You can see out here. So I have like fetched out the same image from here, and we were discussing on this image. So now let us move ahead to the next part, in which we will be discussing on the debugging aspects. So guys, the next thing which we will be studying today will be running and debugging the Android code. So this is Android Studio, and in this Android Studio, in the tools option, you see two things. One is AVD Manager, and second is SDK Manager. So if I click on the AVD Manager, I guess I get a device which is something like this. So you will not get something like this. You will get something like this. That will be this an empty space. So when you say that you want to create a device, you will have to create a virtual device from here. Click here and select what kind of device you want, Pixel or Nexus, or there are so many different devices with so many different screen length, and you can test on any one of them. You can create a device for TV, you can create a device for phone, you can create a device for Wear OS, then tablet, automotive. Obviously we are talking about phone, so I'm just selecting a Pixel XL, then click on next. So here you will have to download one of these operating systems. So these are nothing but the API level which we talk about. So the API level 30, then you can have API level 27, then you can have API level 25, and you can test your code on any of these API level. So for me, let me download and see if I already have some image downloaded. So we already have few images. These are deprecated images, sorry. So I do not have any image, so let me download it. So to download it, I will just click on download. Let me download the 27th one. So this will take some time. So the component has been downloaded, and I will just click on finish button now, and you can see that I can select it. Then I will say next. I can give it this any name. So I will just give it auto funnel emulator on Pixel. So obviously this makes sense, and then I will say finish, and it will create a device. The name of the device is this, the resolution is this, target API is this, and the size on disk is this. Now if I want to like just open up this device, I can click on this, launch this AVD in the emulator, or else I can like select this emulator out here and then click on this. So this will run the app, open the emulator by itself, and run the app on it. So these were few steps which we would require, and this particular thing says that this is an app. Which app is this? This app is this, which is running this one, and you are just running it. So this is to run, and if you see the fourth option here, this is to debug. So these two are different options while you run. If you apply up some breakpoints which looks something like this, obviously we will be talking about them in few seconds. But this is the debug button. There might be a chance that you run a application straightforward like this, and you do not like press like open it in a debug mode. If something like this happens, and like you want to open that particular app in debug mode at that moment, then what you can do, like rather than clicking on this, you just click on this says attach debugger to the Android process. So the Android process which will be running up will be on the phone, which will be here, on which you forgot to open up in a debug mode. So either you can run your application in a debug mode or a non-debug mode. But if you run in non-debug mode and you forgot like to open in a debug mode, you can still make it into a debug mode by saying attach debugger to the process. So let this get open, and meanwhile we will study few other things. So the next part in debugging is like invalidate cache, which I always recommend people to like teach. So in file you have something called as invalidate cache or restart. So as you press this button, like what invalidate cache and reset, what happens is like this project which has been created. So Android Studio will load a lot of things in its cache, and like it like maintains all of these things. So sometimes the error comes out from Gradle. If I just go back and like click on Gradle scripts, so we have Gradle files for two level. One is the project level and second is the module level. So if I open up the project level or the module and module level, in module level, not in the project level, in the module level, we have all these dependencies. So you see, these are all the dependencies which have been like taken up from Android. So if you add few more of them, or like there is some error out there might be a case that you need to invalidate cache, and like if it is reflecting some old error, you have removed the error, and if it is reflecting some old error as per you, so there is always an option to say invalidate cache and restart. So this will like remove all the caches and then restart other program. This is very important. Second thing in debugging is like you can go to build and say clean project or rebuild project. So whenever Gradle builds a project, so you can like you did some code and you see that you should clean up your project or rebuild your project, you can directly hit these options rather than closing and like opening up the Android Studio again. So you can clean and rebuild the project from here. So these were few options which are required by debugging. Third thing is like there is a bar at the very bottom. This bar which shows to do, terminal, data inspector, run, debug, profiler, logcat. So this is the place where like you should be looking out for logs and all the other things while you debug. So if you do not get this bar, you can just go to file and then here in file, sorry, in view. In view, you can go to tool windows and you will find all these options again. See, you have debug option, logcat option, structure option. So debug option will not be present by default. So if it is not present, just click on this button once and it will come at both the places over here and over there as well. So before we start debugging up the code, there is one more thing I want to tell you. In tools, if you do not get these two options, which is AVD Manager or SDK Manager, the only option you can get them is from File and then go to Settings. In Settings, go to Android SDK and then to SDK Tools. In Appearance and Behavior System Settings, Android SDK, and then here the second tab, which is SDK Tools, and make sure that you have this Android emulator selected. So this is what like AVD is. This is from where like this all things are picked up. I always recommend people to like select all these options. If you see that these are not the latest one, I can download them and like install the latest one, but as of now I do not require them, so I'm just canceling now. So these were few things which I wanted to have a discussion on first. Now let's move ahead towards debugging. So debugging can be done in few ways. Let us talk about like first the logs. So we have already like discussed this morning about log.i. So log.i is nothing but just the information. So I can also say log.d, which is for debug, or else I can say log.warning, or I can say error. So there are a lot of options. You can see D, E, I, V, and then again these are overloaded methods where you can have a tag, message, and a throwable tr. So you can use all of these things. For debugging, you should always use D and say that yes, you are in auto funnel, and then say that I am in on create. So what difference do you get? The only difference you get is like you realize your apps thing while you work out. So I will just try to like rerun your app first. Let's rerun your app. So my app has been installed correctly, and let me remove this and let me say only this. So this particular pixel is actually disconnected. So what I was looking at, like why we were not getting up these logs. So why we are not getting up these logs? Because we are connected up to an emulator which was created previously. I need to connect to the new emulator, and here I should be able to see all the logs. So if I just go ahead and delete this makes sense. Why? You will get in a second. So now you see over here that if I just scroll this up, let us see the logs, and here scroll down a auto funnel. So see this part. So we have a log with I slash autofunnel and we have a log with D slash autofunnel. So this is nothing but to bifurcate your logs in various ways. So then we can have a warning logs only. Then we have errors, and then we have the assert statement which we have nothing. Then we have debug. So now you see that we have information, we have debug logs, but we do not have warnings or errors. You see over here, we do not have warnings or error. We have information logs or debug log, but we do not have warning or errors. This is being like recorded by debug logs, right? Then the next part is again verbose. You can select that, which is for V, and here again you will see all the logs except warning errors. So you see I, you see D, and you see V, which is here verbose. So these are the type of logs which can be handled up. Obviously the major thing about this is like you can do something like this to bifurcate them, so this particular thing will not be required of, but yes, if you want to see particularly the warnings errors, then you can use it. This is a good tool, but this search makes it more easier. So I know what are the debug logs. These are the debug logs. This was written by me and all other are written by the tool. And if I want to see the information log, I can just press I, and this is just the package name space I. There are different ways where you can read up the logs. The main thing is like you should search for your logs, set of logs, and then try to find out the error. Few points which you have to take care over here is like this log.d or log.i should never be compiled. You can like write it to like find the errors, and then you should always delete them. If you delete, now do not delete them and like put them up in the production environment or the production APK, then it will create like storage problems and performance problems and like nuisance all over your app. There are two ways to handle this. First is like you can just write an if statement and say that if this statement is true, then please print the logs, otherwise do not print the logs. So this true value can be taken up either from like you can create up a new class and like they say static int, static boolean, enable logs equal to true, and here you can use up that variable. So the second part over here, like where you can like write up this log as rather than writing this, you can just write in build config dot debug. So if you are in a debug mode, then it will like uh, print this log, otherwise it will not print these logs. So obviously you should put up a log in D and you can write something like this. So build config dot debug is something which should be in your build Gradle, and in build Gradle if you see up over here which says that while you debug your log, so you can put up a line which is says debuggable is equal to true. So if this is true, then here in this part in this Java code this becomes true and hence this will print it. So this is like the meaning of like I follow up the previous structure where I write up true and like just hidden values. So this was all about the first way of doing it. The second way is more awesome, which involves something called as logcat. So like we have written up this, we can write up the logcat as well. So I just need to put up logcat. So obviously this class will not be present out here because this is a third party tool and you will have to add the jar file, but I just wanted to discuss the advantage of logcat. So in logcat, if you use logcat rather than log, you will not have to write this if statement. So you can directly write this statement, and it will only be printed if you are like running your app in a debug mode, right? So this is the like usage of logcat. Obviously, like the given way and the default way is this, and you can write something like this. This was all about logs, and like you can see the logs in logcat window down here. You can see all the logs. And if you are like not using up this, there is another way of debugging, and that is the breakpoint way. So how you do it, like let me just put up two breakpoints over here. For putting up the breakpoints, you just need to click and there will be a red symbol. So when you start putting up the breakpoint and you put up this red symbol, you can like right click, and there are few more options. You can write up a condition. So this means that this breakpoint will get triggered only if this condition is true. So obviously, like I am not going so deep inside it. I just want you to know, like there is something like this. You can go ahead and try it by yourself. You can put up a condition over here saying that if a equal to 5 or a equal to true, or if something is true or false. So that can be done. So again, like you can click on more and you will be able to see this in detail out here. So these two breakpoint points have been applied here, and you're looking at the breakpoint which is 22. So you're looking at this breakpoint, and here you see the condition. You can add the condition out here now, right? So in this similar way, like there are few other things, like disable under hitting the following breakpoint. So until this is hit, this cannot be like enabled. This breakpoint cannot be enabled. So there are various things. Obviously you should never use like below the ladder. You cannot use this. Like if you use something like this, then this 22 will always be disabled, right? So I'm not using it. So there are different ways of using it, but let me put up a simple breakpoint as of now for this tutorial, and let me go ahead and run this in debug mode. So either I can run this in debug mode, or what else I can do, I can attach a debugger. But now attaching a debugger will not make any sense because the application is already open. But let me show you that I can attach a debugger, and the debugger is now attached with this console. Now if I go ahead and like open it again, maybe no, it will not work because we have not destroyed it. Let me go back and open it again. So now it works. See, it works now. So in this case we entered using this, but we made it a debug by saying attach to debugger. And now you see this part on the debug tab. We have two like bifurcation. One is the frame and second is the variable. So here you see the value of the variable, where you can see that heading is still null, outer layer is still null, and this specs which is being made out here is nothing but a watch. So you can see over here that we have something called watches in variable. So you can, if you click over here, this will come as a different tab, but I never used it as a different tab, although like you can dig more into debugging. So here there are few points you can see out here. Okay, okay. So I am still at this place. Yeah. So now you can see over here, like we have like few points over here which says that step over, step into, four step into, or step out, and there is something called as run to cursor. So drop me is not active because we have not stepped out as of now. If I go ahead and like step over, it will move up to the next line. And here now the value of the variable changed to something. The outer layout has some value, and you can see the inner details. So this is what watch is doing. This watch is getting you all the details which you might need. So you have all the details about this variable. Then the second thing is like I can move, like I can just say that please resume the program, please do not run any breakpoint, or I can just move on to the next breakpoint by saying step over again. So I have moved up to the next line, which is the breakpoint, the second breakpoint, and I can just now say that please resume it. So I have resumed it. So now let me run it into a debug mode. So again, debug mode will open it in the same way. Let me disconnect that and open it again. In this mode, the activity is launching up and it has launched. It is waiting for debugger and debugger has started. So the next part is the frames, which is visible on this pane. You can see the frames. So the frames is nothing but the stack of what all calls have been made to open up this window. So we are on this particular window which is on create, and you see that we still do not have the headings. It has not been divided into 3 layers and all these things. So but at the end we are on create, which came from this and then further from this and further from this and further from this. So I will just say play, and if I get to play, it moves on to the next breakpoint, which is this, and then I can again say play, and this moves out completely because we do not have any breakpoint and the application is up and running. So in debugging, what you can do is like you can just like go to run, and you can also see a lot of debugging options out here. So all these options which are present over here will also be present in debugging actions. So you can see all the options out here, and you can even get the thread dump. So you can get the thread dump. So this will fetch you the thread dump which you might require to analyze further. So the next thing which we are going to talk about today will be setting up user permissions. So in Android, setting up user permissions usually requires two-step process. First, you need to define in Android manifest a index where you say that what all permissions will be required by your activity. Then in the second thing is like you need to explicitly call the permissions and ask user for the permissions from the activity using Java code. So the permissions have to be asked at two places. So let us go ahead and see how we do it. So I am on Android Studio. This is my orthogonal app. Let me close this. Let me close activity class. Let me close this class. Let me close this. Let me close this. So I do not have anything open. Again, we have three important folders in Android. One is the layout folder, second is the your package where you have the Java which controls this layout, and third is Android.manifest. So I need to go up to Android.manifest folder, and like over here above the application, maybe let me just show you this. So I already had a pre-built like manifest from my previous project. I'm just copying it for you and just pasting it. So you see that above the application you have use permissions and then the permission name. So what all permissions can be given? So you can say that like this application can access internet on your mobile. This application can access network state and see if internet is active or not. Then this application can send SMS from your mobile. This can receive the SMS which you are also receiving. This can read your text messages. Then you can have a permission for logs, call logs. Let me show you. You can just say Android permission and dot, and you see all the permissions which you can like send in, right? So you can send in a permission for call logs, like see read logs, read phone numbers. So an app cannot like connect to your Android OS and like take the things by itself. It has to go through with user permission. It has to take your permission to do all these things. So in the similar way, like you can see what all permissions can be like taken up. So call log is somewhere over here. You can see call phone. You can phone. Yeah, you need a camera permission to use the camera. Then you need like Bluetooth permission to use the Bluetooth from your phone if your application is using up the Bluetooth. So obviously there are a lot of things which can be used and seen, but the way how you ask for permission remains the same. First is you need to mention what all permissions is required by your entire application in Android manifest. So here I say internet permission, access state permission. So I think that these are the default permissions now which are given by Android, but let's assume that they are not. And then there is something called as receive SMS and read SMS. Let us not use send SMS, and let us also remove this. So we also need permission for receive SMS. So because my like auto funnel app was like, it is an auto chat on text message, which is SMS. It is not on like internet layer, like on like something like on which WhatsApp is working. No, it is on normal text message. Like it when you receive a lead from India Mart or Just Tell, they will send a text message, and if the person like reverts on the text message, then there will be another text message which will be sent automatically by your mobile due to this application. And that's why we require your permission to use your SMS. We require permission to like read the internet and so on. So let us do the same thing over here, that we need this permission. So the first part is already done, where we need to define these permission on Android manifest. So we have defined like we need all these permissions on Android manifest. Now we have to define this permission in our AutoFunnel app, which is the Java code. So as you can see, let me minimize this. My Java code is very less as of now. So I have deleted all the overridden methods which were not required. Let me delete these two import statements as well, which are not required, and let me save it. So this is our Java code. So now let us go ahead and write up the code for adding up the permissions. So we are adding up three permissions. One is internet, second is access network state, and third is receive SMS. So whenever we are talking about permissions within Java code, it further has three steps. So let me tell you that it further has three steps. First is like create variable for permissions. So why it is required, we will discuss about it. Second, ask for permission, and third, handle results as input by. So there might be a chance like when you are asking for a permission from a user, say SMS permission, so he can say yes or he can say no. So you will have to handle the results like as per given by the end user, and like this variable is used to create a link between like asking permission and handling it. So this is actually the key which says that the permission was asked for key 1 and the result has came for key 1. Now please handle like the result for key 1. So these are the three steps which are required for writing the permission code in within Java like code. So let us go ahead and at first create up the variables. So we are asking for three permissions, so we require three variables, one key for each one of them. So as you can see, like I cannot write out the variables outside the class. This is not allowed over here, so I will just write it inside. So as you see in this code, I have added up three constants: internet constant, access network constant, and SMS receive. So these are the three permissions which we are asking. You need to make sure that the value of these three remains the same. So as I already told you that this constant define the key. So if you say this one and this is also one, then there will be a confusion, right, while you handle them. So you cannot handle them correctly then. So you have to give it all the three unique. So they can be anything. You can write it 1, 2, 3, 4, anything, any integer number. So but the only thing is that all these three should be unique within a activity. Second is, after creating up the view, you have to ask for permissions. So asking for permissions is very like simple. To ask for permission, what you need to do is like you just need to type a two line of code. Let me like copy paste it and then I will explain it to you. So this is the code which is used for asking for permissions. So when you will copy paste, you will get the same thing, same redness. So just double click, alt enter, import class. These all are Android classes. Control enter, import class, and package manager also control enter, import class. So why it is giving an error is because like you are writing it outside any function. So this particular function can be used only inside a function. So like let me say something like this, where I say uh, request void request permissions, and let me create up this function, and inside this function let us ask for this function. So now you see that we do not get an error, and this is valid now. And as you can see that this code, this particular code of asking of the permission remains the same. It says that activity compact is a class in Android. It says please check self permissions, like please check the permission for this app. And this, like, this is where it is saying that please check permission for this. So this is the context of this app, and it says which permission. It says internet permissions. It says if it is like denied, if like the permission is equal to package manager dot denied, then please request permission. That is again the app activity compact class, like request for permission, and it is like saying for this permission, and then it needs the permission name which we are giving up by like the default constants provided by Android, and at last we are passing up a key. So this is the same key which we created above, this key. So we can name it anything, say we can name it A, and here we can also name it A. But obviously as we are asking for internet permission, so internet looks fine. Let us keep the same way as it is. And you have asked for permissions, internet permissions, that looks good. So now what you can ask is you can ask for like the request say internet permissions, and in this same you can say request access state permissions, and at the end what you can say is you can say request SMS receive permissions. So now you have to make changes. Let me make changes here. I will have to change access network state variable, and here let us say SMS receive variable. So all the variables are used, and the type of permissions we have to change them. So this will be access network state. So this is the permission. We have to use this permission. We are seeking this permission. Again this permission, and here we are saying SMS receive permission, receive SMS permission. This is what we are looking for. Control C, Control V. So now we have like done all the three, and it looks good. If they are denied, they will ask for permission, and if they are not denied, then they will just say log.I information and say auto funnel, and it will say I already have request internet permission. I already have internet permission. Let it be this. Save it. So I think that I deleted up the log class at the very start when I deleted and like created this shot. So this looks good. Let me copy it, the else part, and let me paste it out here. And even on the third method out here, and let me change it to SMS receive permission. CEIVE receive permission, and in the same way I will say access state permission. So what is the purpose of access state permission? Like when you say that you have internet permission, it means that you can use internet. But when you have access state permission, it means you can check if your mobile phone is connected to a Wi-Fi or to a 2G network or to a 3G network. So you can check all these things. While receive SMS is something like which says that if you have received SMS permission, you can receive the text message which is received by your cell phone. You can hear that broadcast. So this is the right word, broadcast. So SMS is always broadcasted to the like phone, and then it goes back to your SMS app. But yes, you can read it, when you have this permission enabled. So how will we did it, we will see. So within this Java code, like we have uh, seen two things. We have created up constants, and then using those constants, now we have like requested permissions. So the only code which you need to know over here is this. So you have requested internet permission, access state permission, and SMS permission. So let me call these functions over here, because if we will not call them, request, let me call them, because if we will not call them, these permission will not be asked, right? So I will call all of them one by one. And the third one is this. Let me copy it. Let me move back. Let me paste it. So I have requested for all the three permissions. So the third part which brings this permissions to the end will be like handling of the response from the user. So for handling of the response, let me take up some code from my previous written code, and we will just correct it out here. So this is the code. So this is a method on request permission results. This is an overridden method. If you do not remember it like me, what you can do is like you can right click over here, then generate, and then overridden methods. Here you can say on request permissions. So I think that this is already there. That's why it is not showing it. But yes, if you delete it, it will be available over there. So you see on request permission, whenever you just say yes or no, it like brings a call to this method, and in this method we have a request code. So this is where you say that like if the request code let me show you. Delete this. Let me delete this. Let me delete this. So it has in total three variables, which is request code, permission, and grant results. So first see the grant results are length equal to 1. If not, like an grant result 0, because the length is 1. So the first element should be package manager permission granted. So it should always be like this. It never has value 2. All the permissions are set one by one. You get a dialog, you say yes or no, then you get a dialog, you say yes or no. So if it is permission granted, then you will have to check if this is something which is coming up from uh, internet permission. So we will say request, if request code equal to internet, then we know that this is coming from internet, right? So if not, I will say just say else if request code is coming from access network state, then I know that it is coming from access network state. Or else if request code is equal to SMS receive, then it is coming from SMS receive. So let me create a log over and I say SMS receive permission granted. And in this similar way, let me create a log over here say and say access network state permission granted, and here also let me say internet permission granted. But I will just copy this code and paste it below, and let us see what happens. So is permission not granted, so this will be the place where it will not be granted, because this is not true. If this is not true and this method is called, it means that this is not granted. To be very sure, what you can do is you can just type in F and just copy this, paste this, and here just say permission denied. So here now you see that you have a code and you're handling up the results as per the request code. So this very like this integer which you created up like and sent while like saying up the asking up for the permissions, this is how you handle it, right? I have just saved it and let me rerun the app. So for rerunning the app, let me run it. So it is starting up the AVD, and let me also open up the logcat, please. Select this API, which is the same. Let me delete I. Okay, let's take I. I just want the information. So we are typing in information. So it is still Gradle is still getting running. It does not have built yet. It will take few minutes. Now the application is getting installed and launched, and yes. So as you see, as I open up my app, I see a permission here which says allow AutoFunnel to send and view SMS messages. So as you see that I do not see a request for internet or access network state. So I told you at the very start that there are few permissions which are already granted to every app. So internet is like mostly used by almost all the apps. So Google has made sure that they say that okay, if internet is required for every app, so we will say internet and access state permission request or like permissions will be granted by default to everyone. So that's why when I come back over here and I see the logs, let us see the logs. Now let me delete it. So here I'm just trying to find out. I already have. Let me find out this. Then we will get this. I wanted this. Okay. So as of now, you say that it has only two messages. Why it has two messages? So what happened is it went up and here it like went up to this first request and it said, oh, it already had a internet permission, and then it say, oh, I already have access state permission also. But when it goes to the third request SMS, it says like, oh, I do not have it, and that's why like it went up to the first one and it does not print any log because we are not printing up any log over here. But let me go ahead and say deny. If I say deny over here, you see over here that it says that SMS receive permission not granted. So it went to up this function and here it went to up the second one where denied is said, and it checked for the request code. Request code was SMS receive or 3, and then it printed up SMS receive permission not granted. So here I am not handling up this situation. So there might be a case in which like your application does not work, cannot work further if you do not like accept the permission. So what you can do is here you can call this function again. You can just raise a toast over here, say something like this toast, and say cannot proceed without SMS permission, and here just ask for SMS permission again, saying request SMS permission again over here. So I'm just handling up this code. So obviously this can be, it should be handled everywhere. Let me delete all of them and let me rerun the app. So as I will rerun the app, it should ask for the permission again. And now if I deny it, it should ask me again. It is asking me again. So I get a SMS receive permission not granted, and it comes back to this, and then it gives a toast. And what is a toast? In Android, a toast is like a bottom message. So let us see it. It will be within a fraction of second. You see there is a toast cannot proceed. At very down you can see a toast cannot proceed. So see, now you must have seen this. So now let me allow it. If I allow it, it says SMS permission granted and my like application is good to go. But this brings the permission lessons to the close, and next we will talk about something about intents. So the next thing which we will talk about today is intents and intents filter. So mind it, this is one of the most important thing you should understand in Android, and which will come to use very frequently. So what exactly are intents? So as the name suggests, intents means an intention to do some job. What kind of job? So it can be an intention to open a new activity, or it can be an intention to send a broadcast, or it can be intention to communicate with outside apps. So there can be a lot of intentions which a job has. So we identify the intention of the job via intent filters. So it says that we are filtering out the request. If we are just looking out for an SMS, or if you're just looking out for something, so it says intent filter. Let me give you an example. So for instance, so as of now, we have not discussed on anything about register receiver. So do not worry about it. Do not worry about this much of code. Just see this much of code. So here we are. What we are saying, we are registering up a receiver. So this receiver will like get all the SMS received, and hence the intent filter is telephony.sms.intent.sms received action. So it is not reading up all the actions which are being read by the operating system, Android operating system. Your app is reading up only the SMS received action, and to read this it requires SMS received permissions. So permissions, we have already taken up the permissions, and hence we can go ahead and register a receiver and say that the filter is this. So this is nothing but an intent filter. So my agenda for today is just to explain the purpose of intents and like what exactly they are. So everything in Android is done using intents. So at the very deeper level, you can understand this like everything is managed by the OS operating system. Operating system managed hundred of applications on our mobile system, and we are building up one of the applications out of those hundred. Now there can be a way like within the app there is a communication happening between one activity or and the second activity. So maybe you are opening up another activity from first activity. So to do this you require an intent. Second is there might be a chance where you say that you are doing a UPI payment. If you are doing a UPI payment from your app, you need to communicate with another app which is actually doing the UPI payment. Either you can write up the code which connects to the UPI server of your bank, and then you do the payment, or the second way is like you can connect with another app inside your app, say Google Pay or Phone Pay. So you can connect to these app and let these app do the payment, and afterwards they will like send you the result back. So this can also be possible using intents. So this is the same thing which can be done via code, something like this. You say intent, UPI payment intent. So in our auto funnel app, you are you're doing the payment using the UPI. So this is the same thing which is happening, and it says new intent, and now it says intent dot action view. So we will discuss about it in detail when we will do it. My intention word for today was like you should be familiar of this word which is intents and intents filter, and what is their purpose and how exactly they do. So here at the end you say UPI payment intent dot set data dot URI. So this URI actually defines the place from where the uh, connection the payment should happen. So this in our app, this URI belongs to the auto funnel people, and like the payment goes to them. In a similar manner, if you want to open another activity within this app, so there can be two activities. As of now we have only one activity, so you can say intent, new intent. You are saying that as of now I am on this activity and I want to go to this activity. So activity can also be represented by a class. This is an activity. This can be represented by the auto funnel class dot autofunnel dot java. So here we are mentioning class because like it would have already been compiled, and at the end you're just saying start the activity please. So which activity you have started? You have started up business class. So there are a lot of overridden methods over overloaded methods for intent, not overridden, overloaded methods for intent, and you can use like each one of them differently for different purpose. And you can also apply intent filter to make sure that the job specifications is clarified. This is what like intents and intent filters means. How we will do it, we will learn it in upcoming chapters. So let us now go ahead and talk about frame animation. So for the last topic for today's chapter, we will discuss on frame animation. So just before we go ahead and implement frame animation, let us understand what exactly is frame animation. So as the word suggests, like frame, you can define it like a photo. So frame, a photo frame. So it is nothing but a photo. And when you say that you have a collection of photos, which can be like played one by one, and like when you play them one by one, they create up an animation. How? So for this auto funnel, like you can see that I have in total 9 images. So this is frame animation. So when I like keep on doing this, you can see that this will create up a, like a visual where I can see that this particular thing is working. And if I create a GIF out of it, so you will see that this will work like this. So if you just make it faster, this is nothing but like the motion, right? So most of you must be aware of it. So like this, like we will be doing this using the Android code. So this is nothing but frame animation in which like you are moving up the images like in after a interval of time, and like when you move it in after an interval of time, so it produces a frame animation. So the point which is to be noted over here is like you need to work on the UI part. So as you can see over here that this is the UI part, and if I scroll move up to the next image, you can see that this particular things moved up and this moved right and this moved left. Something is eaten up over here and a little smoke. So when I go next, smoke increases, it goes up, it again goes right, it again left, something more eaten. And and similarly, like when I reach the very last image over here, so it is eaten everything and full of smoke. So this is image number 6, and image number 9 again like brings it to like just one above the bottom. So you can say that image number 9 is very equivalent to image number 2. So both of them are really very equal, because after this image we should be getting this. So in the simpler way, this image should be equivalent to this. So that this actually depends. You are like creating up a circular motion which will like which will like give you a visual animation which will keep on moving. So here the actual work which is required is on the UI on Photoshop or on CorelDRAW or like whatever software someone is using. I'm not sure what CorelDRAW is used for, but yes, this is something which has to be created up on like a designing software, so or GIMP maybe. So like the only part in coding over here is like we have to run these images in an interval of time so that it gives you a visual effect. So let us implement it. So to implement frame animation, we have to follow these 4 steps majorly. So first step is like we need some container in a layout like a component, and this component will be image view, because here we are talking about frames and frames are nothing but images. So we will take a component called as image view in our layout. We will add it over. Let me bring it to the top. We will add it over here in this activity in the middle, like relative layout. We divided it into 3 sections. So we will use it in the middle one, and we will just add the image view. So like for this purpose, like I have just copy pasted this content you can see on my screen. So I'm just copying this image view which is having a like layout width as match parent and layout height as wrap content. So whatever like will be the height of the image, it will take that, and width it will take of the parent. Let's see what happens and how it looks, then accordingly we can make changes. So the idea of this image view is this, using which we will be creating up an object in Java file, and this is just the description, nothing else. I'm just copying it and let me paste it in this relative layout. Go above and control V. So now we have this image view in between, and like if we see the design, so in the inner layout too, we have main page image view, which is like visible out here. You can see that it like this is this and this is above, but we want this image in the middle, right? So let me go to the code again and say image view, say Android, and say center in parent true. So I think this should come in the center. Now if I go to the design part and select this, so it is in the center of the parent. So let's see how it looks. If it does not look good, if it goes down, then we have to move it up, because if this is the place, the image might start from here. So I will also have to check this. Let's see what happens. But at first you will have to add up the image view, like which is added over here. And then after adding up the image view, we will have to like add images to the drawable. So as we are like having a animation of few images, so we obviously we need that images in our framework. So we need them in drawable. So to add these images, you might have to go to the folder structure. So you can find it in open recent. So here you can see all the projects, manage projects, and you will able to find like this is the path of your project. So mine is not this, it should be over here, which is C drive users PYD admin and then Android Studio projects. So I will just go to C drive users PYD admin and Android Studio projects. Auto funnel is my project name, app source, and then maybe main resources and drawable. So this is like where I need to put these images. Let us go to the like drawable folder at first and add up the images. So my images are in here. I should go to another content, and these are my images. I'm just copying them and I'm going back to the folder which was in C drive users pyramid admin equals username and then Android Studio projects, and I'm just like pasting all the files over here. Control S, and I'm just loading up this folder structure. So I'm going back to my Android Studio, and I see over here that I have all the files. So now we have all the files, but we need a file which like should define uh, the sequence, like which image should be run first, then second, then third, and absolute till 9. Like what should be the sequence, and then what should be the duration. Like each image should be visible for how much duration, and then it moves to the second one. So this is how like we are managing the speed. So this will be the next part which we will do. You see over here. So now like before like we go ahead and like uh, do this part which is Java part, let us write the controlling XML code. So this is the controlling XML code, and this like tells two things. One is the sequence, and as we discussed, second is the duration. Then in our code we will just like call all these things together and say like please run them together as an animation. This will be the fourth step in Java code. So we will create a drawable over here. So we will just right click over here and say new, and here on the second option we see drawable resources. So there are a lot of options over here, like we can explore them as we like move on with this series. But as of now, my intention is to make sure that you are able to like look on with this tool by yourself. So new drawable resource, just click on this, and I will just say as running funnel. Let me say this name, and the root element is selector. These all let them be the same, and just say okay. So there will be a blank XML. Let's see how to write up a code for this XML. So I just copied up a code from the autofunnel like applications, and let me just paste it. Let me not delete it, and let me show it to you. So this is the code which I have pasted up. The below one and the above three lines are the default ones. So let us now go ahead and like click on drawable resources file again. So when you see now this file, there can be like different root elements. So you can have a selector which is over here, or an item, animation list which is the root element over here, right? Not the item, sorry. So animation list is the root item over here. So you can see the list in Android like documentation. So you just need to go to Google and type in like what are the different root elements we can use in Android Studio. So similarly, let me close this for now, and let us see few more things out here. So I am not using this type. I am using the type of animation list because we are doing up the frame animation, and this is what it is required here. So there are a lot of things which can be done. Obviously, all of the things cannot be covered as the part of this training. But yes, if I cover one, you can have like you can, if you get any requirement or if you have your personal requirement, you can just Google it and say like how to create it, and you should get it because the documentation from Android is amazing. So this is our, like as I said, this is our root element which is animation list, and like this is something which is always required, which like connects to the Android server and make sure your code is running as per their policies. And then we have various items in this animation list. So as we told, we have 9 images, so I have added all the 9 images. The first item is in drawable and name is fp9, which is this. So I began with the ninth one. So this was how I wanted, and then like second image which we took was the first, and then we have taken it in sequence. So anyhow, I could have started from first and like ended till ninth. That should have also have worked, but this was just a choice. And at the end, like again in XML, you have to close the tag. So I'm just closing up the tag. So this is the image which is like this is the file which is required, which we just created, which is running funnel.xml. And now the last part of this tutorial, in which like we will be seeing up the code into which like we will be like adding, like combining all these things together using Java. So again, using Java, when we say using Java, we have to combine all these things. So what all things? First is image view and layout. So at first, whenever we talk about controlling the layout, so the first thing we create is a layout object. So the layout was image view, right? Image view. And let us name it as, let us take it as this. Let me copy it. Let me keep it as private, and image view class is not there, so alt enter and import class. So image view class has been like taken up, and then we will combine all the things, like that is like the XML file and the layout, everything. So I will write all these things in on create. So let us not take up these permissions now, and let me put them on hold by commenting them. So this is the code for animation. Let us talk about it first. So there is something called as running funnel drawable and animation drawable. So this is a class in Android, but this is something like which is also required. So at first, like you have taken up the control of the image view using this object, then we need another object which will be saying that please animate it. So this is the animating object which has been created up by, like this is the class which has been created up by Android. I am just creating up a object of this class. So this will be required to animate this image. So to do this, again, this is our code. In running funnel, we are just like assigning the resource as we always do. And then in the second, like we are saying, please set image resource. So we are setting up the image for this image view. So this is just taking a single image. We are setting up the image for this image view, and it is in, like we saying that this will be drawn by a running funnel. Running funnel will not be any of these images. It will be the XML which we have created. This XML we are loading up on this image view, and then we are saying that running funnel drawable, please like get the drawable from this object. So these are all the classes and like functions which have been created by Android. So here it says that image view dot get drawable. So you are getting up the drawable, you're getting up the control of the drawable of this image view, and you're giving it to animation drawable. And animation drawable is obviously like the object which is running funnel drawable, and you're just saying running funnel drawable dot start. So this will start this automatically. So you always have to like write these two lines for frame animation. Then this will be like as per your XML structure, and this is the ID of your image view. So this is the ID of your image view, which is taking up, this is how we are taking up the control. So here now we have managed the image view, then we have like added up the image to drawables, and then we have controlled XML code for images. So we have done everything, but still there are few things which are left before we like close up this chapter. But before going towards it, let us go ahead and run it. Let me click on run and let us see what we get. Installing it. So you see this image, it is now moving, right? But I said that before we close up this chapter, there is one more thing, and what it is, now I will just tell you. If I just close this and reopen it again, this works, right? But there might be a scenario where like you want this to be stopped when you go back, and like when you resume, you just started. So like it like does not like just uh, hamper your performance, right? There will be some backend code which will be running up for this, and you just want to start and stop it. So what, how you can do it, like we have already discussed about these two functions which are on resume and on post, which are the states, so in the last part I have said over here that we will be managing of the activity states. So activity states are on pause and on resume, and within this we are just saying that this animation please start only when we are on resume, we are resumed up the like this application, and please stop this animation when it goes to the pause condition. This will surely like add up some performance goodness to your code. This makes also sure that the application works always as intended. And just right click and say generate override method on pause and on resume on resume, and we want on pause generate. So I was like creating them inside the create overridden method, that's why it was giving me error. And on pause, so okay, both of them has come. So here I will just say running funnel drawable dot stop on pause, and dot, sorry, this should be stop on pause, and on resume it should be start. So this is what I will give, and I will just rerun this app. Let's see what difference this makes. This time it will run quicker than before. Again we are saying of the same thing. If we press this button, this button, this button, it goes back. Let us press this button and this button and this button, this again comes back. So this all looks good. So this brings this chapter to the close, and let us meet in the next chapter with some more exciting stuff. Thank you guys, have a